So let's continue with the remaining steps. So we completed step number 4. Now we are on to step number 5. So we'll create Cosmos DB account. Step number 6 is we'll update the Azure function code, and then we'll verify the end-to-end flow, all data flow all the way from the DataGen source connector all the way to Cosmos DB. And then in the step 8, we'll have Power BI connected to Azure Cosmos DB and see how the data looks. So that's what our objective is. So let's get going. All right, so let's go to the next step. We have Azure Cosmos DB link here. We go in, and I already created the DB account, so it is in West 2. So this is the one that we'll work with. So it is Confluent to Azure pipeline account. That's our Cosmos DB account. And what will so there are a lot of things on the left. So, but of interest to us are Data Explorer, and then containers, which will allow us to browse the container. So we don't have any collections or container database to speak. So let's create one. And so new database. So we can just say orders DB container ID. We can say order container and partition key. We can just say ID. And I think that's all we need for now for our proof of concept. All right, so it created. So now if we look at, so we can write queries, things like that. But if you look at items, there is nothing in here. It's all empty. And our objective is to get the data from Kafka here. All right, so we have completed steps 1 through 5. Now let's continue to step number 6. So step number 6 is we'll update the default Azure function code that was provided by Azure to parse and massage Kafka messages and insert into Cosmos DB. So we'll use Visual Studio Code for that. Another thing is I've already made the code changes, and so I'll just walk through the changes that were made. So here is the format of the message that is received from Kafka into Azure. So it is an array of messages. Our setting is to just send one message per call, and it is dictionary with this layout. So it's like a JSON object. And so what we do is we'll get the object, and then we'll loop through each of the messages in that array. And what we need to do is we need to now Cosmos needs a ID field or column when inserting into it. So we have to add that to our message because our message does not have a field called ID. It has order time, order ID, item ID, order units, address. So there is a nested JSON for address also. Um, but so what we'll do is we'll use the order ID as the ID. So that's what this piece of code is doing, and we are logging as we are making the changes. And the next step is to have Cosmos credentials mentioned here. You can use secrets manager or environment variable, things like that for this. But just for our proof of concept, I've included the key and all these hard-coded values of endpoint, database name, container name here. And then once that is done, then we need to create container object and database object, and then use containers create item method to be able to insert into the Cosmos DB. Now, to do that, we'll have to import azure.cosmos module, and we'll have to include that into our requirements.txt file and install locally also. So in requirements.txt, we include azure.cosmos. The way deployment works is you go here on workspace under Azure tab, and then when you click on it, there's a link to create function, but there is also one to deploy to Azure. So click on it, and it will ask which function app you want to deploy this function to. So in our case, we'll select this one, and it will ask if you want to overwrite existing functions into that function app, and we'll accept that. Just take a minute for it to show. Okay, and we say deploy, and we'll start the deployment process. As you can see, I've been doing multiple deploys. It doesn't take that long. So the last time I did it took 26 seconds. So 20 seconds. So I'm hoping that it finishes really fast. All right, so the deployment is complete. So, so deployment is complete, and if we look at, if we go to code plus test, or if you go to the function app, you'll see your function here. If there are multiple, they'll all be listed here, and then from here you can click on it, and then you'll be able to see the code. And it says you cannot edit. You have to edit through your Visual Studio Code or whatever client you're using. And then if you want to look at logs, you go here and it will open the window for logs. And what we'll do is we'll start, and also uh, let's go to Cosmos DB. So what I've done here is within Cosmos DB, I have this order DB container, and this query gives you list of items in the container or collection. And if you click on it, if I execute this query, it gives the total number of records right now. So it is 797 records. I've been playing around with it, so that's why. And so if I want to look at which one is the latest order ID, that is 1571 right now. So let's apply the filter again. So it is 1571, and then there are 797 records. So let's go ahead and start our DataGen source connector. So we'll resume that, and we'll start pumping in the messages into topic, orders topic. So you'll see the order ID. It's now 1590, 1597. So it's increasing. So the data is coming into topic. Now let's verify whether it's going into our. So now you can see the logs that we had um, mentioned in the Python program. It's displaying here. Um, so that means the messages is coming into Azure Function. Now let's go ahead and verify here. So the last time we had it was 1571. So let's apply the filter and see what it shows. So it is 1657. So there has been some messages that have come through order messages. And then let's go here. So there were 797. Now if we execute this, it is showing 906. So 906 messages received so far. Now let's pause the connector and just make sure that the last message here is the last message in. So let's go ahead and pause our connector, and we can go to topics, orders, and we'll leave the messages to settle down here. So 1705 seems to be the last one. So let's go ahead in Confluent. So this was 906. So let's execute again and see what it shows. So it's 931. We execute again. So I think it's studying at 931. Now let's go to the first query where it was showing the order items. This is, so if you click on it, it will show. So the order, the ID is same as the order ID, and this is the message that was received from Kafka. Now if you apply the filter again, if you refresh, 1705. So if you look at Kafka, it is 1705. So the last message received was indeed inserted here. And also sometimes there might be errors with connectors. So what you can do is you can go to connector, and there is logs. So you can check through the logs and see. So there is no error in last 15 minutes. You can change the filter to show all the messages, whether it is informational messages, things like that, so that there is no logs found. Um, so now what we have done so far is we have completed step number 5, 6, and 7. We verified the data flow end to end from Confluent DataGen source connector to the topic, to the function, and then to Cosmos DB. Now the last piece that is remaining is the connecting of Power BI to Cosmos DB. So there's slightly different steps to it. So what you have to do is to for setup. So for setup, you have to go to um, a link called integrations on the left side. So let's look for that. Integrations, and then there is a link for Power BI. So you go here and you have to enable the Azure Synapse link. And then once you do that, then it will show the order DB order container here, whatever is your containers, it will show here, and then you can pick and choose. And there is additional cost to it. It will warn you for that. And then you go to next. And here you select the subscription. You create the workspace. I already created the workspace earlier, so I'm just showing you the steps that need to do to be able to connect to Power BI. And then you have this Power BI DB orders, and then you go to next. It's already set up, but it's just creating views based on the database. And then it will ask you to download something called .pbids file. So it is a Power BI file, and when you click open it, it will open Power BI on your desktop, and it will create the connection. So we'll look at that next. All right, I have Power BI open here. So we'll go to the step of creating a simple chart just to show how it is easy to connect to Azure from Power BI for operational analytics purpose. So let's go to get data, and we want to get data from Azure Cosmos DB. So we'll use the Azure Cosmos DB connector. So let's go to connect. It's asking for the DB endpoint. So let's go here. So this is our URI. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it here. And I'll use direct query, so it's updated real time. So click OK. It will show you available collection containers. So click on the container, and this is the preview of the data. So as you can see, the address is exploded here into city, state, zip, and it has ID, item ID, order ID, things like that. So let's go ahead and load it. All right, so our data source is loaded. So you can see on the right, this is the data available. So let's create a chart of top 10. So let's click on it. Let's make it slightly bigger here. Now I want to see top 10 states. So state. So x-axis is the state. On y-axis, we want the order ID aggregated field. All right, so we have sum of order ID, but we don't want sum of order ID. We want count, so we'll select count. So we have count of order ID, so it's updating here. So we have counts, but we don't want to see all the states. We only want to see top sum. So let's go ahead and filter. So here it's having all the states. So instead, let's go ahead and update the filter. So we'll select top n. So we'll say top 10. And by the value, so here we'll have count of order ID. So add that. Stop it here, count of order ID, and then apply filter. And you can see here it is 708 for state underscore, and for state underscore 7 is 57, and state underscore 4 is 55. So let's look at state underscore 4. So let's go to Data Explorer, and we can pause our container. And so state underscore 4, let's execute. And it has 55. So let's go to our Power BI. State underscore 4 was 55. It matches. The way to refresh is you go to optimize and refresh visuals, and it will perform a refresh. Now let's go ahead and start the start the connector, source connector. So let's resume. So state underscore has incremented by 157. So let's go ahead and check here, and Power BI. So we can go ahead, refresh visuals. So it is updated to 59, and I'm assuming it's kind of getting updated there also. But you get the idea. Um, that as the data flows from the front end, so it's 60. So as the data gets, so if we kind of freeze all that, so you can stop the connector, freeze the data getting pumped in, and then we get the count, and then we can check. Okay, so that should stabilize. Okay, so you have 60. And if we go back to Power BI and look for, so it is showing 59, but if we refresh, it should show 60. So this is way to kind of have near real-time analytics. I'm sure you can configure, I'm not a Power BI expert, but you can configure Power BI to refresh every 15 minutes, every 5 minutes, whatever is the business need, every hour, things like that. But I hope I enjoyed creating this near real-time data pipeline from Confluent all the way to Azure Cosmos DB and Power BI. So I hope you enjoyed watching this as well. Thank you. Thanks for watching.